I'm Mike Bensimon, and I'm running for Town of Fallsburg Supervisor. Please join me this Tuesday at 7 p.m. on Tea Time with Bunky, where we'll be discussing all the major issues affecting our town and why it's important for everybody to come out and vote this year in an off-year election. See you then.
Welcome to Tea Time with Bunky. What's his message? Hi, Dan. All right.
Welcome to Tea Time with
Welcome to Tea Time with Bunky. This is super recent. Welcome to Tea Time with Bunky. I missed you guys. I really, really did.
Hi, Bunky. Can you hear me okay? I can't hear a single word you said. This entire time since we started, you've been muted, or maybe it's my audio.
Oh, it was me. God
Oh,
dang it.
there you are.
So
Yeah,
nobody heard. Nobody heard. Well,
yeah,
maybe
the
good
first
because
six
I was
minutes.
ranting. I was like really upset. I was really. Did you hear the video?
I heard the intro video, but as soon
Okay.
as you started talking,
Okay.
everything.
Maybe it shouldn't have been heard.
Okay.
Maybe. I'm going to repeat it though. I'm going to. Welcome, Mike. This is your second appearance on Tea Time with Bunky.
Yes, it
How's it
is.
feel? Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you for
it.
so much. Thank you for having me. I loved
You
being on
know,
your show the first time, and
we
I'm looking forward to this experience again.
I told you before I got you. If you ever want to come on, I got you. Wait, where's your name? Right here, Tom. There we go. There we go. So this is this is your second time running, but this is a bigger platform. I think this is a bigger platform. So can you just start by telling a little bit about yourself and your background? Because I mentioned all those letters for people that don't know. Let me also tell the people you're endorsed by the town. He's endorsed by the Town of Fallsburg Patrolmen Benevolent, Benevolent Association, supported by the town's dedicated civil servants, CSEA Local 853 Sullivan County. He's a career auditor and fraud examiner committed to integrity, transparency, and accountability. Those are three big things. Big, huge. And we need that. I'm sorry. Now, please tell everybody a little. Oh, he went out. Please tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Well, Mike Bensimon. Um, I am a member of the Fallsburg community. I have four kids in the Fallsburg School District, two in the high school, one at the elementary school, and one special needs child in Sullivan Boces.
Uh-huh.
Um, I hold a master's degree in government management, and to that end, I'm not only a classically trained city manager, but my specialty was specifically to go into auditing and evaluating large governmental organizations to ensure that they're at peak efficiency and effectiveness. So I've pretty much dedicated my career to improving operations and fostering a more ethical, transparent, and efficient government. Specifically, in my role working for an inspector general's office in the state, and then eventually working for the county auditor's office, a lot of what I did also hinged on investigating fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption, specifically in the governmental environment.
You're more than qualified. you have the qualifications. You have the qualific. That's a lot. Like that's so. Do you feel ready for this? Do you feel? I'm looking at you, and your shoulders are back more. Like from the first time, you're more confident. I love seeing that. I love. I just had to say. I just had to tell you that. Because from last 2 years ago versus now, you're like a different. You're a different person. Now, how did you
Thank you.
get into the? You're welcome. You got to give credit where credit is due. How did you get into the fields of auditing and fraud examination? Because that's to me, make it exciting for me. Because I'm like, that just looks like a lot of reading to me. Make it exciting.
Well, I've always been very inquisitive growing up. I always needed to understand how something worked and why it worked, and I needed to understand the big picture to that end. And so I thought I would go into a career as a police detective investigating crimes, and
Okay.
then and I started that program. I joined the auxiliary police force with NYPD. I've been doing that for over 17 years, originally just to get me ready, to go into law enforcement. But eventually I decided that being a police detective really wasn't for me, specifically because
I had more of an interest in investigating white collar crime, corporate fraud and things of that sort. So so I went to school with the intention of working in the private sector, working on catching the next big Bernie Madoff, which is really what I was looking to do. But in graduate school, I realized that there is this whole different field in known as inspector generals, whose job it was to basically act as the internal affairs for all government, any and all government, not only to investigate fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption in government, but also to evaluate public programs, to ensure that they are, efficient and just as most importantly, effective in alleviating whatever the public societal need that it was designed to do. So, that's once I realized that there was a whole new field just, in government oversight, I really got excited about that, and I changed with the whole course of my trajectory. And so the MPA program, the public administration program, the master's program at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, which is my alma mater, was at its core designed to be a training program for future city managers, county managers, and public administrators, but also had this very specific scope, which is unique to every MPA program in the entire country, that focuses on inspector general work. That's to be able to go into a government entity and be able to basically break it apart and determine where all the money is going, if all the programs are supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so with regard to the town, I had worked for the federal government when I was in the military. I worked for the state government when I was in the inspector general's office. I worked for the county government, and I still work for county government, being an auditor mostly, but also in the last year being a financial manager. But I really have no insight into how our town government works. I can, as an auditor for the county, I can basically talk about more or less every department and how everything interacts with each other, and finances, spending, programs, initiatives. But when it comes to our town, to get financial data or to get more information really isn't that easy. You watch the town board meetings, but they're usually over in 10 minutes. They vote for everything in a block. Nobody really sits down and goes through, the work sessions, for example, is where the town board members will sit down and actually discuss the issues and as to where they sit on a certain issue, certain things. But a lot of times first of all, the agendas don't have the resolutions on them, so they just have a very vague description as to what is being talked about. So you don't see the actual resolution in the context of the resolution. You also don't have anyone talking about what it is that's being voted on and why.
So this is what motivated you to run?
Yes.
They
It's
were
the
doing
lack of
nothing?
information. It's the lack of information. As a private citizen in this town,
My opinion.
looking at our town government and trying to glean information, to fully understand what's going on is fairly difficult. And when I ran last time, I hoped to get a seat at the table, and obviously that didn't work out.
Right.
But afterwards, I had, tried to get involved. Specifically, I wanted to gain more information, for example, with the wastewater treatment plant that we're looking to upgrade. So I attended the public sessions, for the public information sessions. And I remember there was, I conducted my own analysis based on the preliminary engineering report, and I had a lot of questions as to the design, the capacity, the technology that's being used, the membrane bioreactors as opposed to a conventional activated sludge system. And so when I attended a public meeting and I asked a lot of questions, I couldn't. I didn't get the answers I wanted, and then when I asked for more information, I was immediately told that I need to do a FOIL request to pull that information. But then again, And not only that, the information would have come in, because the information I was seeking was data, and the data would have been, basically it wouldn't have been normalized, so I would have had to sit with raw data and try to spend months normalizing the data until I get something that's useful. When I asked the engineer, hey, you already did this work, can I obtain your work? And he seemed okay with it, but again, the project manager at the time, who's no longer with the town, basically said, sorry, we can't release that, that you have to FOIL this information. So at that point I realized that, really the public meetings were just
A
a
show?
formality.
Oh,
Yeah, they
yeah,
were
it was
just
just a show.
we're statutorily required to go through a certain amount of public meetings before we progress on to the next step. So, it really wasn't about public input. It was just about getting through the meetings. So at that point, I realized that in order to actually have a seat at the table and provide input, you have to get your own seat and
Yeah,
then
you
bring
do.
it to the table.
Yeah, and you're doing that, and
And
all of
that's
that
what
is
I'm looking
crazy.
to do.
They were not ready for you, Mike. They were not ready. They weren't ready for you. Um, you emphasize integrity, transparency, and accountability, right? Explain a little bit what that means to you. I know what it means as me being someone who lives in a town, right? You talked about the transparency there. You didn't say it like me, y'all. These are my words. There is none. There is no transparency. All the waters are muddy. They really, really are. They give you what's on the top to make it look good, but everything under it it's a hot mess. If you don't ask questions, like a might come in and be like, well, what is this, and this? They can't answer those because they're not prepared. Um, what do those three things mean to you? Because they're big
Yeah.
words. I mean, you have
Well,
big meanings there.
well, they're not my policy platforms.
Right.
That's my core
And,
values.
right. And you got to have values.
Absolutely.
Gotta
So
have that.
so to me, integrity means doing what's right, even when no one is there
No
to
one is.
watch you.
Yes.
That's the core definition of integrity. Transparency just means open and honest communication with the community and let them know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then accountability is being able to take responsibility for your actions and to also learn from your mistakes and strive for improvement,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's about owning up to what you did or didn't do,
Right.
and so for me it's the honesty. Public administrators, elected officials, they're going to make mistakes.
Right.
Speaking as a public administrator, I try to employ professional best practices, to the field of government administration. And a lot of times when you're performing a public policy analysis, you have to there's a lot of factors to bring into the calculation, and sometimes you'll come out with a proposal, or a plan of action to alleviate whatever the societal need or whatever the case may be, and it may not work right away. So there's a system when implementing public policy to implement, monitor, evaluate, reevaluate, make corrections, and evaluate some more. There's a process to it. It's very difficult. A lot of times when you have an issue, you create one solution, and you think it's done, but you don't realize that a lot of times that solution can possibly create other problems that people don't realize. Um, I don't know what kind of examples. It's essentially where you get sick, you have symptoms, you take medicine to treat the symptoms, but that medicine comes with its own side effects, and now you
Right.
have to take more medicine to treat those symptoms.
Right.
So a lot of times that happens in government too, where you create band-aid fixes to a problem that doesn't really address the underlying issue. Um,
Right. I get you.
and so these are the type of things that I try to address, and I look to do it with public input, because I can't have all the answers. So
What? You
I'm looking to
can't. You don't know it
I
all?
nobody nobody has the
I'm
answer,
being
and
sarcastic, you
and
know.
and even and even when you have the data, you don't always have the right answer. So it
Right.
requires stakeholder input. But the most important thing is to own up to what you did or didn't
Mhm.
do it with integrity, do it with openness, and try to
Agree.
bring others into the fold in making those decisions. I aim not to be a boss, but to be a facilitator.
Mhm.
One of the things, one of my actual policy platforms is to create a workforce in the town that is professional, professionally trained, customer service oriented, and I can't do any of that stuff myself. They're the ones who do the work.
Right.
All I can do is provide them the tools and the resources and the environment that would be conducive for them to do the work that's proper.
Absolutely. Because it comes from the head. The example,
Yes.
you're the example. Like, so how you treat people and everything, and you expect the people under you to follow that, you know. It just seems to be a mess now. It's I don't I don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with, an ethical environment.
Yeah.
So another one of my policy platforms, I call it closing the bribery loophole, right? Yes, so I think I touched on this 2 years ago. I'm surprised no one's done anything since then.
Of course
But
not.
essentially, our town code, what is it, section 12, subsection 3A, that basically states in our ethics portion that town officials, employees, elected officials, can receive gratuities of up to $75.
We know that's
Okay,
not
now,
true.
all right. So
That's not going on.
I have issues with this on multiple levels. When I worked for the state inspector general's office, the state standard is that public employees can receive gifts of a nominal value. That's the key word, nominal value. So what does that mean? Nominal value usually means like a promotional keychain, a free pen, type of thing that you no reasonable person would think that that would be something that you could bribe somebody with,
Right.
right? That's nominal value, and that's the state standard. And I've investigated many cases, conflicts of interest, and various other cases where
Okay.
people have exceeded that, of any amount. It could be $1, and that's enough to be in trouble. When I came to the
Wow.
county, I realized that the county's ethics law states $75 per year, which again I have many issues with. How do you enforce that? How do you keep track of the $75? How do you
Right.
know
How do you keep
are you
track?
getting 20 from here, 20 from there? Who keeps track of that? So on its face, I've always had issues with that. But then when I looked at the town ethics law, it says $75, but doesn't say a week, a month, a year.
A
So you
day.
could really a day per transaction, so it's very vague and very difficult to enforce,
Mm-hmm.
right? So one of the first things I want to do is set the tone at the top, change that from $75 to gifts of nominal value, which basically means nothing. It just means a keychain, if
Right.
anything. So that's, you want to set that tone from the top, that there are some people out there that can't afford to give tips, to their public employees in hopes that they will work harder and better. That's not how it should be. It shouldn't
Right.
be a system of, where the wealthier, those who can afford it, can and you don't want to create that system. First of all, the perception is terrible.
Yes.
It gives the perception that basically, I mean, I'm thinking of like people plowing the roads, but this also applies to code enforcement officers, to police officers. This is a very slippery slope.
Right.
So so again, going back to integrity, accountability, and transparency, well, the first thing you want to do is create an ethics law that is robust and holds people accountable. That nobody should be taking any gifts, gratuities. It could be cash, could be services, could be, and so it's
Trips.
it's it's fun. Yeah, I was speaking to a highway commissioner, a DPW commissioner years back about this, and he was kind of telling me anecdotally that it was very common practice for like an elected highway superintendent to go out to lunch with a prospective vendors looking to get the road paving jobs, and the $75 just meant that there was enough cushion there to get the lobster dinner. So obviously when I heard that, that it shows that it's maybe a cultural thing that's kind of become commonplace in the county.
Yeah. The county's
I
culture is a mess.
it's
I
yes.
I can say
So
that 'cause I don't work for them. They're a mess. It is. Yeah.
So again, so you have to set the tone from the top,
Right.
and that's a good place to start.
What are some of the key issues, some of the key problems um, that Fallsburg faces currently? Like, what are some of the you talked about the 2 minute meetings? Well, it doesn't give you didn't call it. That's me. That's this is my opinion, y'all. You don't call it. I call them because they're really quick. That's because they have them on the calendar and they got something to do 15 minutes later. So, um, what are some of the things that the county faces? Then I think I'm gonna give my opinion on some stuff, but you're the one running. What is some of the problems that you've seen that you've seen?
So, I mean, where do you start? One of our biggest issues is infrastructure or lack thereof, or
Mhm.
crumbling, aging infrastructure.
Yes.
The reality is, and I can't put this on any one administration, this is an issue that's been going on for
Yeah. Oh,
decades.
yes. Yes.
And so, I would look at, let's use the wastewater treatment plant for an example, right?
Okay.
So, we ideally you want to set money as you want to collect money and set it aside for future upgrades, right? And technically, we have the system set up in place. So for people who are in the sewer district, there are two bills that they see. One is the rent, the sewer rents, which you get quarterly, based on, it's based on usage, and that's designed to cover the operations of the sewer plant. And then on your property taxes, you also get a charge for the sewer capital charge, right? And that money is supposed to go towards capital projects relating to the sewer. Now, if you look at the budget, I'll use 2021 for an example. We raised $1.8 million in property taxes, and that $1.8 million basically was designed for paying off any debt. So we did have $751,000 in bonds that we paid off that year, but the other $1.1 million that was raised ideally should go into a capital reserve fund, which is set aside for years later when you need to pay for maintenance, upkeep, upgrades. Every
Mhm.
year you should be putting that money aside.
Right.
However, in reality, that money just gets put into the pot to cover operations, day-to-day operations. So for years, there was no money really being set aside in the capital reserve fund to fund our expansion, or at the very least the upkeep of what we have,
Mhm.
right? So this is an example of failing to budget for the future. You're really just dealing everything year by year, day by day. um, so infrastructure is a major issue, and what you would want to have when it comes to infrastructure, or at least from a capital planning perspective, that you'd want to have a preventative maintenance schedule, right? So let's say our water pipes, we have these 60, 70-year-old asbestos lined water pipes, that are just waiting to fail.
Right.
Ideally, you want to have a preventive maintenance schedule. Let's say the useful life of these pipes are 30 years. That means every year you're replacing 1/30th of the pipe. So that when
Okay.
you hit 30 years, you've already replaced the entire system. Now you're starting again. This is to prevent water main breaks that would, that severely impact all of us, because then you wind up with, not only do you not have the water, it causes damage in the roads. You might have a boil water notice for a few days afterwards. You
Yeah.
don't want to wait for things to fail. You want to be proactive and replace it. Ideally, also, the next thing you want to have is a capital plan. Usually it's a 10 or 15-year capital plan. And it's with this capital plan that you project what your growth is going to look like, and you plan accordingly so that you don't have to deal with it when it finally comes. And that's kind of where we're at. And then to make it happen, you'd want to ideally have a 5-year capital budget, right? Instead of approving a budget every year, just dealing with issues as they come up, you want to have a plan, and you want to have it backed by a multi-year budget.
Mhm.
So, these are investments in our infrastructures that kind of have fallen to the wayside in most respects.
So we weren't
So
ready. You weren't ready.
we weren't ready.
We
Yeah,
didn't
that's
save for
right.
a rainy day. But
Yeah,
knowing the people that were in position, past and present, they saw where our county was going, the town was going. They saw the demand was going to come, and they did nothing.
they did nothing. They didn't do enough. I'll just say that.
And they didn't even have a meeting long enough for it. So it's like they just did not. They didn't care. Oh,
Yeah.
just
So, and so so now
facts.
you want to look at the societal impacts of something like this, right? Because
Mhm.
something like this creates division and issues within communities of the town,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Now,
yes.
and again, not to point out any specific communities or anything like that, but people would say that back in the day, our roads were empty. We had, we didn't have power outages on a Friday afternoon. We
No
didn't, we didn't,
places to play. The kids had places to play.
we had plenty of parks. We
Yeah.
had ample clean water and sewer.
Yes.
So the reality is that when you have all of those things, when you and as demographics change and certain trends change and people come in, as long as you have those things, you don't have that much strife. Fallsburg is a very diverse town. We have
Yes. It
tremendous
is.
diversity in this town, and we welcome diversity in this town.
Right.
But when you get to a point where now resources start to get a little strained, the roads start to get a little packed, there's not a lot of electricity go around. We're starting to get water outages. It starts to create divisions within the
Yes.
community. But
Right.
as a public administrator, I'm looking at the failure of government here,
Right.
right? Because really, as a public administrator, the proper thing to do was to project and see these trends coming
Right.
10, 15 years in the future and make those plans ahead of time, so
Right.
that you can, and unfortunately, when people try to say, "Oh, it's them, it's us, it's this, it's that," it's not. It's government. It's our elected leaders, and for that matter, the lack of professional public administrators that have failed to properly um, um, acknowledge and plan for the change in demographics that occur in any and every community over course of 100 years. Um, these are part of the issues that we need to address. We need to make sure that there's enough infrastructure, be it cell phone service, broadband, emergency communications, you name it, it runs a full gamut. We
Right.
need to make sure we have all of these, in plenty of resources, and it'll help alleviate some of the strife issues that we're seeing between various communities in this town.
And speaking of strife, I talk about this all the time. I do. It's not just Fallsburg, but I can only talk about Fallsburg really because I live here, right? Housing, none for regular people. And y'all don't come for me. When I say regular, I mean people like me that have lived here in Sullivan County for 53 years, right? And I heard somebody say, well, they should have bought property in. You talk about somebody had said this. I heard someone say this. Well, they can't complain if they didn't go out and buy property. But you know what? Some communities didn't have the education for, when I say education, they weren't taught the different grants and the different things that were available, like to minority communities. Like some people weren't, oh, they weren't aware. But it's like I look at the housing now. I look at how Town of Fallsburg used to look when I was a little girl running around the little Bryant Eberg Park. We had the basketball courts and the movie theater is still there. They didn't take the movie theater. But now when I look at it, I see the burnt down old drugstore, that corner, which every time I look at it, it devastates me. Every time I look, and I have my opinion on it, that one. And across the street, that used to be a little grocery store over there, burnt down, which is going to be built back up for a different community. You look at the housing going up, brand new structures, not affordable housing for regular people that live here. Nothing for them. They got to live in really bad situations and pay lots and lots of rent, you know? So what about the affordable housing and the regular people that have gotten pushed out? Because basically, when you look at it, have you walked through the town lately? Have you
Sure.
walked through the town? I mean, no lie, Mike. Like I said, I've been here forever. We used to have by the old burnt drugstore. We had across the street was a shoe store, right? It was a shoe store there. Then we had the police station. Then there was the shoe and another shoe store. Across the street from that corner was a shoe store. I don't know if there was a liquor store, but they had bars and stuff like that. But when you walk down the street, it was lit up. There was life. People from all different backgrounds walking around the street, talking to each other. It was like, it's not like that anymore. Now it's depressing. It even has a smell like New York City. No, New York City has a smell. It's like garbage. It's just like, I'm sorry, Fallsburg. I'm sorry. But that's what it's like. Because I went to the Chinese restaurant and had to walk past it and wanted to cry. So what do you say about people who, like me, are like really aggravated and annoyed when you see all of these housing come up and it's nothing for regular people. You have LGA in them that are law gardens that are trying to hang on by a thread. They're trying to hang on. But it's a matter of time before that's gone. And that's not even upkept good. And it's across the street from these new buildings. And it's not for them. You know, it's like the new kid that just came to school with the new Jordans on and look really nice. And then you have the child over here who can't afford Walmart sneakers. What do you say to people like me?
Yeah, so a lot of that kind of touches on the fighting for limited resources bit, right? Because if we had lots of affordable housing stock in the town, and we could say, well, in my budget I'll get a 1 bedroom, a 2 bedroom, you have
Right.
opportunities and availability, you wouldn't have a lot of the other issues. Now, I'll definitely speak to the aesthetics, because I definitely have some opinions there. I believe that if you're on a main street, you should strive to be open all year round,
Yes.
because it affects the aesthetic.
Regular people
Um,
too. Regular
right. But however, there
doesn't look.
are, if you look in Woodridge, there's areas that like by the old IGA over there, there's an area that's open seasonally in the summer, and but it's not on the main street.
No.
So that's perfect. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But ideally, you want your main street to have some activity and some business
Right.
there. With regard to affordable housing, there's several variables that factor into that. So one of them would be, this the advent of Airbnbs and short-term housing, that's really affecting the entire county actually. And you can kind of see it with like the bed taxes, right? The bed taxes have really exploded over the last several years, where they were collecting a couple $100,000 a year, and now they're collecting millions, multiple millions. And a lot of that is coming from short-term housing, specifically from Airbnbs. And the negativity, I mean, it's great that we have all this extra bed tax money, and now we can use that money to promote the town. But unfortunately, we can't use it for anything else. We can't use it for affordable housing because it's based on state law that requires us to use it for promotion of the town, right? So so it's good on one end, but it's terrible on when it comes to actually having availability of affordable housing stock in the county. So that's one piece. The other piece has to do, obviously with development and having, the right kind of affordable housing development. Right now, the development that's happening is primarily for profit. It's really driven by the market, and those who can afford it will buy it. So really, there's nothing there for affordable housing. The town used to have an affordable housing law in our townhouse law. So it used to be that if you were to build a townhouse development, you had to allocate 10% of the houses
Yeah, I
for
remember that.
affordable housing.
I remember
Yeah,
that.
and it was based on federal poverty guidelines, and there,
Right.
the law had, very detailed structure as to how it was going to be administered. And when I read through the law, I did find that, certain things didn't always make sense. But the law was sound in its intent, right?
Okay.
But unfortunately, we don't have that law anymore. The law was revoked last November.
It
So
revoked. It was revoked.
revoked. Yeah, I
And
forget which November meeting, but in November
last
2022,
November.
this
Last
past
November.
November, yes.
And who revoked it?
So, just to give you some backstory on that,
Please.
I attended the May 2nd, 2022 town board meeting. I was there to, I was hoping maybe, have a few words regarding the wastewater treatment plant, which the public meeting was the day before, Sunday, May 1st. But when I was there, I noticed that one of the biggest developers in the town, along with his attorney, was there to make an appeal to the town board to get rid of the affordable housing law. And they
Wait a
were
minute.
stating,
Wait. Just what developers, is that what we're seeing now? I'm just asking. Is that the developers for what we're seeing now?
I mean, he's
Yeah.
got multiple developments in the
Okay.
town.
But
He's
not
definitely
for
one of the
affordable
bigger ones.
housing, but not like
Not for affordable
major
housing,
housing.
yeah.
Okay.
Right. So
Okay.
he asked to, or they had asked to get rid of the law,
Mhm.
citing that it was arbitrary and various other things.
What?
And the town board or the town attorney, was right in saying, hey, we're going to look at the law. We don't feel that it's 100% enforceable. But rather than get rid of the law, how about you just go to the zoning board and get a variance to not have to listen to this law, and then we will get rid of this law only when we have a new law to replace it with.
Okay.
And that's what they did. In the June of 2022 ZBA meeting, the developer came to us for two townhouse projects, two separate projects, seeking a variance. And what's funny is that I was trying to get him to make a good work with the law. So I said that, instead of 10%, why not
No.
5%? Why not 6%? Or there was a requirement that 10% of what you're building has to be affordable housing. Well, maybe for the clientele who are affluent, they don't want to live in a development with affordable housing. So how about you buy another property down the road and build it there? Or for that matter, it only applied to selling houses, but doesn't apply to renting houses. So I was saying, work with us instead
Right.
of throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
Let's just focus on the elements that are non-enforceable, and we'll give you a variance on that. And so I kept going back and forth, and his answer was always that this is a government issue. The government should be looking for a fix for this problem. This doesn't fall on developers. Developers who are building Section 8 housing have federal grants and stuff. But I said, give us something. And in the end, it got kind of heated. If you read the minutes of the ZBA meeting, where I said, would you be willing to make a $5 donation to the Federation for the Homeless? And not that I would vote yes in that case, but I got to the point where I was just so frustrated, and even at that point he said no. So at that point so at that point I was a no vote, but the person did get their variance and they could
That's
build,
crazy to me.
yeah.
So
Now
nobody.
the thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Go,
ahead.
No, I was just to finish the point. The thing that really surprised me is that, all right, it's the person got his variance and he could build whatever he wants, and that's that. But then I noticed in September they issued a public notice that they were going to amend the townhouse law to get rid of the affordable housing provisions, and and that
Just get rid of it.
just get rid of it.
So the
And
people just
so
don't matter. The people, they don't matter. The people that live here, regular people. I am getting, my blood pressure is going up. I'm sorry, it's just like raised. I'm getting a headache. I'm getting a headache. This is
yep.
crazy.
And in November of 2022, last year, almost exactly a year ago, they voted to strike everything that has to do with affordable housing, including the section of the town code that that has a definition of affordable housing completely out. And so I was speaking to, it's funny because, they didn't provide a new law to replace it. And I was watching the town board meeting from like 5 or 6 months ago where, some concerned citizens, maybe Mary Adams or Felicity Katz, asked, hey, you got rid of this affordable housing law. What's the story with the new law? Is it coming? What's happening? And, the town supervisor said, yes, our town planner is working on the new law,
Our town.
and
Mm.
and it'll be released when it's ready. So here we are, 2 weeks from election day. I doubt something's going to be released. I don't know where we are on that, but
You,
I found it to be a kind of a travesty to get rid of the law completely when, if developers need some kind of relief from that law, apply for the specific reliefs or work with the law. You don't get rid of a law and then decide to create a new one years later if it comes at all.
that's because they don't care. They don't care about people, regular people, non-homeowners, because that's what it is. And that $75 that you was talking about, the $75 ethical,
Yep.
$75, I can tell you now that people in the I can't prove it, but I'm telling I don't want to just throw out information, stuff that I know. I don't want to do that because I'm just not that person. But I tell you what, they got more than $75 for this situation. I mean, when the stories I've heard are mind blowing. Mind blowing. Things that went down 2 years ago, the elections 2 years ago, some of the things that happened, some of the way some of these palms were greased, as my grandmother would say, the way some of these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars played a hand in this. And it's really disgusting
Yeah.
because people are voting, they're out there voting for people that they think they could trust. That's because they don't know their candidates. They don't know them. They only know the surface. Um, they're friendly in your face, but they have an agenda. And it showed that they don't care nothing about the people in Fallsburg. All they know is people that they went to school with. I went to school with them. Oh, they're really nice people. Um, they really care. They're going to make a change. They sure did. They knocked that affordable housing right out. They did. They knocked. Boom. There you go. There you go. And I don't. This has nothing to do with you, but I just want to bring this up too. And we're going to talk. It's about the person now in office. Something came across my desk without going into it because I think it's disgusting, and I would never devalue such a claim, an allegation. I would never, because there are real victims out there. But the fact that this allegation is coming forward a week before elections, I'll send it to you. Look, playing it off. I'll send it to you. A week before elections, I think it's for a sympathy vote. Y'all better get out there, know your candidates. That's it. Speaking of election day, because that segued into election day, knowing your candidates. It's right around the corner, elections, right? What message do you want to get out there to the voters? What's really important that you think they need to know? Because you gave us a whole lot right now, and there's still a lot more. You gave us a whole lot that people need to think about.
Yeah, I just want to say, get out and vote. There are all of the town supervisor elections going on in this county,
Mhm.
with the exception of Fallsburg and Highland, are uncontested. These are chief executives of towns that are running unopposed without anybody running
Nobody
against
going
them.
against them.
And I've always found that to be like a real travesty of a functional democracy, right?
Mhm.
And unfortunately our town has that history too, where you
Yes,
have people running unopposed many times and being in office for decades.
right.
And
And just wreaking havoc, wreaking havoc.
yeah, and I don't have it in any of my literature, but I do bring this up whenever I can. I would like to see term limits created for the town supervisor position,
Mhm.
because I think it's important to get fresh blood in every
Right.
so often. So two terms or whatever it is. It's a 2-year term, which is kind of odd. But again, we want to get everyone to come out in an off-year election, and people
Right.
don't understand just how important these off-year elections are, because these are the elections that affect our municipal government, which really has almost all of the impact on everyone's personal lives,
Mhm.
compared to a federal or even a state level election. Or for that, I mean, the county elections are going on now, and that definitely has some impact, but the town elections have even greater impact to every resident's everyday lives. So
Right.
the message I want to say is, get out and vote. We have something like 7,500 registered voters in town.
Mhm.
Let's
Need to
let's see a
vote.
real turnout this year.
How can the community get more involved and stay updated with your campaign? Like, how can they get involved and stay? Because they need to be involved. People need to know your candidates. People, like I keep saying that they just don't want to listen. But how can they get more involved? And stay updated. Well, there's your
Um, well, I have a Facebook page. That's
right down there, Mike for Fallsburg.
yep. You can email me, mike.bensimon@gmail.com. Feel free to call me, text me, message me, DM me. I'm really very accessible. You can come to my house, 213 Mountaindale Road. I'm home most evenings, so just knock on the door.
Don't tell
Although I
no,
suggest,
don't tell people. Don't tell people. I'm not gonna do it.
but that's the point I'm trying to make, is that I'm accessible for
Mhm.
any and all conversations. And I just want to bring up one little point.
No,
One of
you got
my
some time. You got some time.
Okay, so a big piece of what I'm running on has to do with government ethics and
Yes.
accountability and customer service, right?
Yes.
So this is something that was very important to me, and there was one of your shows that I watched a couple years ago that really drove that point home. I don't know if you remember this, Marvin Gibbs.
Absolutely.
He went
And he was a
missing in
friend of mine. He was a friend.
yeah, he's been missing since 1985, and
Right.
he's definitely one of the cases, one of those cold cases that we'd love to see closed. But 2 years ago, you had his sister on your show,
Mhm.
um, and I was like baffled, because a good portion of the show was spent discussing the poor customer service that she received from the town clerk's office, and from for the town in general, when she was just there trying to get information on her brother. She wanted
Right.
to know what the status of his case was. She wanted to just do a FOIL request, and it was
A
and she
mess.
basically got poor service. And the
Right.
whole time I'm listening to this, I'm jumping up and down in the background saying, this is not how government should be. It's this stereotypical DMV employee mentality that people have of government workers, where they're apathetic, they don't care, they're just there to collect the paycheck and go. And that's really not what government is supposed to be. It's by the people, for the people, you know.
Right.
And my philosophy is, as long as you take good care of the public servants that do the work, they in turn need to take good care of the residents that they're charged to take care of,
Right.
right? So so in her case, even if for whatever reason they couldn't give her information because of some law or some kind of disclosure, it was their job to make her understand why they couldn't help her, and have her walk out of there feeling like they cared about her
Right.
issue, but for whatever reason couldn't give information. I think that maybe something could have been done,
Right.
to help her a little bit more. But assuming that you couldn't give her any information, she wasn't supposed to walk out of there feeling that people didn't care about her
And that's
issues.
that's how she felt and feels, because it's still the same. She's still going through this. Like, nobody would pull. I mean, like, after the show, it like really opened up a Pandora's box. It really did. It opened up a Pandora's box. It ripped the band-aid off, and she reached back out to the police department, and it was like she just was the detective, I guess, was still he still worked there at the time. I think he retired since then. Um, she wasn't getting any answers, and it was heartbreaking. And I knew her mom. I mean, like, this woman went to her grave not knowing, having any answers about her son, and she didn't feel as if she was heard when after the show when she's reaching out to the town and everything. Yeah, it was horrible. Like they gave her a hard way to go. They really, really did. They did. They
Yeah,
wouldn't return
yeah.
calls but I know you wouldn't do
So right, so that kind of catapulted me, to focus
that.
on
I
this
loved it.
customer service. For me, that's very
Loved
important.
it.
And again, I am a career government person,
Yeah.
and I deal in operations and management, and I want to make sure that everyone that works underneath me, is very cognizant of the importance of dealing with the public with respect, and doing the utmost to, and much of that has to do with taking care of the people who take care of the people.
Hmm.
And that, and so for me, again, I'm just here to be a facilitator. I'm here to be, I consider myself more of a servant leader than as a boss of some sort. I'm here to facilitate, a positive and professional work environment for all the town employees, and in turn have that turn into, greater productivity, boosted morale, and ultimately, more efficient and effective public services to our public.
Now, what you just said is totally opposite of what the current supervisor said before she won. Before, like you made it about the people. You totally made it about the people. What she said to me, this was to me. It was all about her. It was. I never said this on the air because I don't like throwing out. You know, it was a conversation that we had because we used to converse like that, and it was all about my office. This being centered around, it was all about me, 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 and I see that with what's going on now. They showed it with throwing out the housing. How do you throw it? I just don't get how they could just they don't care. People, y'all need Mike. Y'all, we need Mike. We need you, Mike. And you go against a lot of what the culture is right now. You do. You do. That's why it's needed. That is because you have to give Town of Fallsburg a brand new culture. Gotta the culture has to change in the way things are done because it's not good at all. It's pretty disgusting. Not other people. But okay. So I'm sorry. That's my. Oh, look, you guys go to the Mike. I'm gonna give you the last few minutes, but I just want to remind people to go to your government page. And here's a copy of my sample ballot. When I say my area, my sample, and it has everybody that's running. It has everybody listed. This way you can look at it. You can research your candidates. Listen, early voting starts next week. Next week it starts, and it's for a week, and then elections are the 7th. But so it has the ballot of everybody, the name of everybody running, and on the back of it, turn it. Well, you can't see because of the light. There are the 2 amendments that they're trying to pass. Um, I'm not gonna read that again because I messed up in the beginning. Read that so you'll know, so you can vote on it. Because if you don't vote, and let's say 3 people here did, and they won, it's the majority right there. So y'all be wise voters. Be wise voters. So, Mike, what do you have to say? How do you want to leave this? How you want to end this?
Well, I want to put a little sense of urgency in there, and it's early voting is not next week; it's in 4 days. It's
All
this
right,
Saturday.
this Saturday. This Saturday.
This Saturday starts early voting. I suggest everyone go out and vote because on election day, something may always come up.
It always.
Um, Now they have early voting, obviously, in the Board of Elections in Monticello at the Government Center, but they're also having a second location, which is the Public Health Building in
Oh, I didn't
Liberty.
know that. Okay.
Yeah, exact
Okay.
same times, just 2 separate locations.
Okay.
And all I could say is, we got to make a change for the better, and everyone needs to come out and vote this year.
Everybody needs to come out and vote. Know your candidates. Um, because I've been saying they don't care nothing about they don't I didn't know how much they didn't care about us, but they proved that they really don't care anything about the people in the town of Fallsburg. Um, But you know what? It's fine now. It's almost over. People can get out there and vote, make a change. Go out there and sweep this, do that. Um, the early voting, like you said, the hours vary, so it should be no problem with people getting out there to vote. It should be no problem. Um, I don't like to vote on voting day because it gets a little crazy. Like you said, things come up, so I want you guys to get out there and vote like your life depends on it, because it really does. It really, really does. I don't know how much you can do at this point. You're going to need more than 2 terms. You're going to need more than 2 terms to try to make a dent. I don't know. I pray for you. How about that? How about, how about that? I pray for you. Um, and I appreciate all of you. Mike, don't go anywhere. People didn't hear it before because I was on mute when I was ranting or whatever, but I want everybody to know that Tea Time with Bunky, you can hear Political Tuesday. You can hear this show, not this Tuesday. Is it this Tuesday? Or next Tuesday? On Zeno FM, you can download it. It's a free app, the music app, radio app. And at 8 a.m., you can listen to it on Rockbox FM. And on Thursdays at 8 a.m. on LLR Columbus, Radio Rockbox FM, Radio Becero, CO, It's Southern Soul Gold, Culture Shock Radio, WAP the Music Radio, the Tattoo Shop Radio. And on Sundays, Confidence Radio, Sundays at 12 p.m. And they're powered by Zeno FM with additional online supports by Radio Box. This last I heard, I think it went up though. 173 countries were listening to this. So yeah, which is crazy. Other people going to hear how crazy we are. They're going to hear what shape we're in, but there's somebody in place. People are going to hear what a democracy is supposed to be like. You get out there and vote, make a change. But so yeah, we're global. We're part of a global VGN, Village Global Network, part of a global entity. So I'm proud to say that. So you're going to be heard all around the world. I didn't want to tell you that because I didn't want to make you nervous.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, you guys. So I appreciate you. Make sure I'm not sure. I think I have something really good coming up Thursday, because I was going to take Thursday off, but there's something brewing. So if so, then I'll push it hard. But next week I help me with her name. Wasima. She's running for town clerk.
Wasima Shahid, yes.
Wahima Shahid. Sorry, I didn't mean to. She's coming. That's going to be interesting. She's running for Town of Fallsburg clerk. I've never seen. Well, no, I did short term, but I've never seen an elected African American or woman of color in that position. Fallsburg. Never seen it before. So she'll be on Tuesday. I can't wait to have this conversation. It's going to be good. So
you'll like her. It's going to be a great conversation. I'm sure of it.
I'm sorry. I'm sure that I can't. I want to know what made her do it. Me and her, we're going to talk. So that's Tuesday. That is on Tuesday. So you guys tune in, tell a friend. Elections are coming up all over the U.S. So it's not just here. You guys get out there and know your candidate. It's very, very important. So like I always say, I appreciate you. Like, share, follow, and subscribe. Follow my YouTube page. I'm trying to get the numbers up. Trying to get those numbers up because too much stuff is going on with other things. So I will catch y'all later. Good night.